Having fun, enjoying what you do, being proud of yourself at some point, right? The pressure is huge. You have hundreds and hundreds of reasons every day to have fun. But I think overall, take some distance with what you do and who you are and try to remain very humble.
Stéphane Lemarchand is a partner at DLA Piper based in Paris. He specializes in high-stakes IT litigation and leads clients through strategic digital transformation and major technology projects with deep expertise across law, technology, and business. He is widely recognized for helping organizations navigate their most complex digital challenges.
Someone who says, I'm a partner in my law firm, I come by myself, important to ask the question why.
So would you say that building a team is a real essential attribute and those people who are not able?
Building a team, create legacy is...
Welcome again to Beyond Billables, lessons from top law firm partners, the podcast where renowned and well-known law firm partners reveal the secrets of their successful careers. I'm Stephen Rodney, founder of Integrate Coaching, where we produce tailor-made lateral integration programs for partners joining new firms. I'm formerly co-founder of Fox Rodney Search, previously one of the best-known boutique legal headhunting firms of the last 25 years. I'm delighted to say that joining me on the show today is Stéphane Lemarchand, who is a senior partner at DLA Piper in Paris, where he's had over 25 years experience of helping multinational and domestic companies with strategic digital transformation and IT projects and a broad range of IT litigation matters. Stéphane is very highly regarded for his deep experience in and understanding of the technology industry and is recognized as a deal maker for major IT and digital related transactions, including outsourcing. Previously, Stéphane was global co-chair of DLA Piper's intellectual property and technology group for 7 years. So a very warm welcome to you, Stéphane.
Thanks for the nice introduction.
It's a pleasure. So obviously we've known each other a long time. I think it's fair to say that. But it'd be interesting to hear initially about your journey to becoming a lawyer originally and then to becoming a partner.
Probably asked me that to go back a long time ago then, obviously. And the funny thing, Stephen, is that I more or less became a lawyer by chance. There is no lawyers in my family. I didn't really know what becoming a outside counsel or practitioner looked like, didn't know any friends. And then I went to law school. I was just became very quickly passionate about one particular practice around IP law. And then move on. And then at some point, this is all about meeting people and watching, enjoying. And that's very much how it came. Hard work, probably, is one of the conditions of the way I became at some point a partner. Probably as well, some interest in the industry. I was quickly and very early involved. I mean, the technology industry.
I think you said when you were at university, you became interested in IP law. Got your interest so early and so quickly then.
Like him, I'm a generation where obviously IP law was very much was starting to think about the implication of IP law into the technology sector. That's talking here about more than 30 years ago. So obviously a lot of thinking around software protection, about databases. At this time was creating some new topics and issues. And I think the combination and something like a kind of a contradiction between the protection of software and copyright at this time became one of my best topic I was fascinated about and started to meet people there around these topics. And that's how it came in. So, and of course, one big factor has been obviously the IP professor that I was helping there to try to navigate into these new issues. And then we started together and himself started to create a new PhD and around software law and what we were calling IT law at the time. Everything is AI today. That's very helpful about IT law. So that was very emerging topics. And I realized, well, that's new. That's interesting. I love this practice. I just want to work into this. And that's how I started my training session into law firms. And then I said, I want to be a lawyer. And that's the way.
If I remember rightly, originally a Bird and Bird, is that right?
That's right. I was one of the founding team member. That's 25 years ago in Paris. Right? I mean, in Paris, of course. I think Bird and Bird was the correspondent of my French law firm I was when I started my career. And then at some point with the big internet boom, end of 90s, early 2000, there was this ambition for this firm to open Paris office. And then the partner I was working for and a few friends of ours, we just opened this Paris office in 2000. And then I stayed there for 10 years.
Okay, so you were a partner originally at Bird and Bird.
I became a
before you?
partner in Beyond
Yeah,
Billables.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And was that, becoming a partner there? You mentioned, hard work, and obviously I take for granted that hard work was important. Something you always wanted to do to become a partner, or how did that happen?
I think, yeah, again, I've been lucky, and probably that's part of the success as well. So it's fine as
Yeah.
some luck, right? I've been lucky to be bombarded more or less, or almost asked to become a partner without really, at the time, there was not such processes that we all know that in law firms, right?
Yeah.
So we were working hard, growing this practice in Paris. The partner was founded the office, was very, interested with my expansion, and I was developing and building client relationship as a young and quite a senior lawyer at the time. And then one day I just been told, I'm back from the board meeting, and by the way, you'll be a partner from 1st of May. I think I shouldn't say that, because many of our junior people now wants to become partner, obviously are going through a very strong process and very rigid ones, but that's the way it was for me. So, and then of course, maybe that was something natural for everybody. That's something obvious to me. I was very autonomous and very keen, and that's how it went.
Okay. So, what is being a successful partner from your point of view, Stefan, apart from billing a lot?
Well, over the years, that's not old enough to obviously have some views about that. I think the question, but we probably all may have some different perspective and views, and what is to be a successful partner. And you probably ask that question to many partners, you may have some different answers. For me, being successful partners, of course, is to be hard worker, is to be quality driven, is to be client driven and obsessed by the client satisfaction. That sounds to me obvious and basics things to remember. But for me, being a successful partner is also the internal and external recognition. I believe being a good lawyer on your market, in your sector, recognized by your peers, for instance, is something that is part of the success. I think getting the view that you have worked hard, that you're recognized by clients, but you just you're just there, and you're part of the picture, if I may say. And I think this is an asset, and I think this is part of success. And maybe this success criteria, I think, and sometimes this is under evaluated in law firms, by the way. I think the way people are perceived on their markets, we're just looking and reward people on the basis of what they just build. But the quality and the recognition locally in your practice is something that sometimes is not at the right level in terms of recognition within law firms. To me, that's very important. And also, and maybe lastly, and maybe beyond everything, I think it's all building a team. That's the way I grew up, with a partner who I worked for 17 years before I left Dunbar and joined DLA Piper in 2010. Then I replicated very much this about working with a group of people that you want to succeed as well, right? And you want to see people succeeding, so you want to help your team, and building kind of a cohort of people that over the years, and I'm now old enough to have been capable to see a good numbers of my associates becoming partner, including at Piper. And that is a great level of satisfaction. This is what I believe success is about as well.
Okay. So do you think building a team, so do you think partners that don't build successful teams, because there are kind of what I would call lone wolf partners who are viewed as very successful and maybe aren't good at building a team, or aren't good to be working for, but maybe are very good at getting clients in. So would you say that building a team is a real essential attribute, and those people are not able to build a
So
team?
that's my view. I'm not telling you this is the right view. I'm
Yeah.
just telling you this is, but general, I think this is, for me, I think the way you, across the partner cohort, you can see this kind of skill set of someone who is not only a good billing person, not only a remarkable client-driven person, not only a quality lawyer who is recognized on its market, but is really keen. Because the reality is that in our business, obviously, partners can be, lone wolf, as you just said, and that's the way probably markets see them. That's the way clients see them. But the reality is that there's always a team behind people.
Yes.
The question is how you bring this team together. What do you want to build for them? How you leverage the quality of working collaboratively. I always thought that you better share your views and exchange with your team mate, including with your junior in the team, right? What do you think? And this is my thinking. This is creating emulation and quality, I believe, in teams. So that, and yes, some people are better than others in this. That doesn't mean they are not successful partners, but that's my definition for me. Building a team, create legacy, is really part of it.
Good. Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, obviously, you had a lot of experience at Bird & Bird, which was then, I suppose, a European firm. DLA Piper is a global firm. Although obviously a large part of the practice is based in the US. You yourself are not in a pure US firm, haven't had experience of being in a pure US firm, but you've seen a lot of US firms in action. Do you think those attributes that you've described are common to both non-US and US firms, or where do their firms differ at all?
I think the attributes are very much common. I think, honestly, for a French-based lawyer, anyway, working in international environment with a UK-driven firm or a US-driven firm, I think what you need to develop as a skill set in your capability to navigate into this Anglo-Saxon world, right, in terms of mindset and culture and language. So that's but of course these are different. You can design and define UK law firms differently than US law firms in terms of business model and approach to profitability, approach to strategy, approach to short-term versus long-term view in terms of growth, in approach in terms of geographies, where obviously we're going through this as a law firm. We know what the differences are, but I don't think that is for a partner like me, requires different kind of skill sets, in order to navigate. I think you need to accept anyway that you live in a world that and that's a reality. By the way, if you want to work in an international firm as a French-based lawyer, you have no other option than choosing whether a UK law-driven law firm or a US-driven. These are the two founding, I think, legal structure that are driving and dominating the legal industry today. And even though you would find French law firms who will have offices elsewhere, that's not really what I would call international law firms, right? And so I think if you really want to work in international law firm, you have to anyway to work into these big US or UK law firm. And again, I don't think so. You need to accept though that you are led from New York or led from London. And your challenge is actually an opportunity, by the way, if I'm talking for myself, is actually to try to influence these law firms to become more international, more European, or more, I think, multicultural. And that is what is also exciting. And I think that's been part of my journey at DLA Piper as well. Try to be influential, coming from a different kind of mindset.
Yes, and in the time that I worked as a recruiter for DLA Piper, the firm became much more global in its outlook than back in the mid 2000s when we first started working. So presumably you found an evolution of culture which is suited more to non-UK or non-US partners.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So, Stéphane, I mean, you've obviously had a large amount of management and leadership experience. First of all, was it your ambition after you've been a partner to become a leader of a practice group or even a firm, or did that just sort of something that came to you?
I don't know why, honestly, but the truth is that I've been involved in management very early in my career, including at Bird. Very early after my partnership at Bird & Bird, I joined the board at Bird & Bird. I was, as a junior partner, part of the remuneration committee, and before I left, became one of the co-managing partner of Paris office. I think I always, and maybe that's part of the way, maybe what I'm sending to the others. I think the kind of energy and willing to do things and to implement and to have views about directions and ambition, which I share. That's probably created this kind of understanding around myself that maybe I can play a role. So that's the way I grew up. I've been educating, watching the others, and listening and learning from your more senior people. And then when I joined DLA Piper, honestly, when I joined DLA Piper, I was joining DLA Piper on the basis that I was joining more global law firm than what my previous firm was, and I've been very much convinced to join DLA Piper by a guy you know well, Simon Levine, who is the guy who hired me in 2000 on the basis that, well, this is a bigger picture and maybe you have a potential there, and why not, right? But I never ever thought that by joining DLA Piper I would have that management journey. I became, as you said, IPT group head 2012, and then I said 7 years. Then I joined Simon at the executive committee for 5 years, more or less for his second term, and that was just obviously a great opportunity. So I never really asked for all of this job, and I've been just offered, and of course I probably show a willingness in the way I move. But that's the way things happened to me.
And so do you think the skills that you've outlined, to be a successful partner, are those the same skills that make you a successful leader in a law firm, or are there different or additional ones?
That is a very good question. So I think these skills are different. And I learned along the way, these skills are very different. I think of course you need, and that's probably theoretically you could say every good partner cannot be a leader, but you can say every good leader cannot be a good partner. The reality is that in practice that you need in law firms to have this internal credibility and capability to be seen by your peers as a leader based very much on your partner's success. So first point, of course, in this respect, you're right. That's being a successful partner, having client relationship, team success recognized, for me is a starting point in law firms. But you need to develop other skill sets, and I think having a strategic thinking, capability to bring people together, aligning people you don't really know, right, or people even you can disagree with you, being capable to find the right consensus, and you learn, by the way, that as a leader you shouldn't go faster than the rest of the cohort. So always thinking that's how you bring people, listening to others, being confident, but at the same time being open to others and accept that you can be wrong and make mistakes and be open about that. Being transparent, honest. Integrity is a very important point. The more you go up in a law firm, the more you need to recognize that you're not there for yourself, but very much for the community of people who are trusting your judgment by giving you this capability to influence the change. That is the sort of being decisive as well, being resilient as well, because you face many unexpected events. And we went through many of that with Simon over the last years. That is part of the sort of skill set that you have to develop and show. And I think there's a little different than just being a successful partner.
Yeah, no, I think it is. Do you think? I always used to think that sometimes law firms promoted partners to management simply because they were successful and high billing partners, and didn't necessarily look at, as you put, their capability of strategic thinking. Maybe that happens less now. Do you think that happens less than it used to?
Well, I think law firms are very different from one another, right? I think, and that's maybe something you can sometimes reflect the big difference between US law firms and UK law firms as well. What UK law firms might be probably in a way far more strategic than the very short-term financial view of the business seen from the US. But yes, hopefully, I think the truth is that in big law firms like DLA Piper, you have to, if you are successful, you are given the opportunity at some point to show you have or not these kind of skills. You're given kind of a local role, you're given kind of a practice role or a sub-group role, and then you just have to deliver. And if you have this track record, you can expect for the top management to watch younger generation and hopefully to test. So in theory, that's right. We should be better in trying to bring up those people who are developing that kind of skills that doesn't give that people a kind of a right on the others or a priority or a kind of superiority, but recognizing that some people are better than others in terms of managing and leading, right? And by the way, there is a big difference here between
There is, yeah.
and I've seen very strong managers of practices or countries who are really, really bad at leading and steering and vision and strategic directions, and vice versa. We've seen very strong leaders who just have a view about becoming the bigger, stronger, etc., with no skill set in terms of managing the financials. So I think, again, this kind of old skill set, this is something you build over the journey. And I think this is ultimately right, that yes, law firms sometimes tend to believe that financials are the only conditions and criteria to select your leaders. That's not the case, I think, at DLA Piper. But
you mentioned about US firms perhaps sometimes being a bit more short-sighted on this kind of stuff. Is that because really that they have such a big domestic market that they can just focus on that, whereas European firms, they can't just generally focus on their own domestic markets because that's not going to be enough to make them grow? Do you think that's why the US firms behave like they do occasionally in terms of how they respect lead managers and leaders?
Well, first, that works, right? I think you can have a different view of the way US firms drive their business. The reality is that I believe they are winning the game, right? In terms of power, dominance, and direction, and the competition is there, and in every big financial city in Europe, I think big US law firms and are just driving many of the biggest cases and litigations and I think, and hiring, and so it works, right? So we shouldn't always say, well, this is the US guys and approach. No, in terms of strategic thinking, yes, I think if the US firms can become strategic, that is where it becomes really powerful, and that you've seen those few who are really, really good at having this international expansion rightly thought, tactical in terms of where and for what, and rather than just being there, right? Which is sometimes very much the approach of European-based international law firms. I just want to be there because others are, or just my clients are. But that's, I think, thinking twice about what do you want to do, and where we don't need, because clearly the market is not the sort of market we can deliver the kind of profitability we expect. That makes sense from business directions.
Yeah.
So, that works. That's how I would say. Yeah.
I think it's interesting that, I mean, not so much now, but historically, if you look at Latham's and Kirkland's in particular, obviously, which are the two highest grossing law firms in the world now, they both came from outside New York. They had to battle to grow New York. And I always used to think that they were used to having to invest to get a return. They didn't expect a return instantaneously like a lot of New York firms do, because those New York firms were in New York and had this massive market. As I said, I think that's changed a little bit now, but do you agree that made a difference to those firms?
They are making a difference. In particular, over the last 5 years, we've seen this enormous expansion in financial power these are delivering compared to European-based or UK international law firms. I think driven by their markets, no doubt. But the reality, Stephen, is that we are at a moment where globalization is obviously challenged and questioned. Yeah. And this is a big question for these law firms, including, I think, these big US law firms, about what is the future of international law firm in a world that become more nationalistic and protectionist. And I believe there is obviously more than ever a need to keep the business international, and because where the clients are going anyway, and also because if you need to help your client, even though if it's just to bring back the business home, you need anyway some support. But few law firms in the US are ultimately can be seen as really international, and that is where those who have made investment over the years, whatever the structure is, and through the kind of approach like we've done at DLA Piper, I think that is a big asset. That is a big asset for the US firm of DLA Piper, that's very much have a kind of geographic footprint that is unique. Those and LATAM did as well in a different way with full integrate model, right? With coming from the US where they've been probably less expansionist, but still very much competing everywhere it makes sense. They probably ask themselves every day whether they are right or wrong, right? To be in this country or to be in that country where hourly rate can't be the same as in the US. But I think that brings probably a question about what's the future of big international law firm, because less and less US law firms are doing, and you've seen a lot of retracting from region, including from Asia at the moment, right?
Yeah. Okay. So if we could just move now to the subject of laterals, and obviously I was a recruiter, not anymore, and now I focus on trying to help laterals integrate into their law firms, because there's lots of studies done, which are quite shocking, really, in terms of how few laterals really perform to the extent that everyone hoped they would when they join the firms. I'm not talking about laterals who fail completely, because those are usually for different reasons. I'm talking about people who just don't perform in the way that everyone hopes. And obviously, you're someone who's either directly or indirectly been responsible for recruiting a lot of laterals, whether they're in Paris or globally. What are the 2 or 3 reasons that you see when you look at laterals that you've helped to recruit, that they either succeed or fail to achieve their potential when you recruit them?
I think that's something I always thought that, and I always told the partners, I think, coming to me and say, we have this opportunity and we should recruit. And I've met this guy and he's doing he's doing this for these clients, and that we should hire, blah, blah, blah. Always question is before we look at the people, let's reflect on the project, right?
Yes.
And choose what is the need, what's the rationale behind the need, what the strategic thinking about this, and well, we need, for instance, we want to develop someone patent litigation in France, Germany. Okay, so the rationale is, what is the client base? Why do we would like to do? Where's the competition is locally, globally? And yes, that makes sense because we want to align. We're strong in the US, we're strong in London. We need to do that. European court is there, blah, 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 blah. That is and then you start looking at the market. That's probably one of the first conditions. Never try to justify your project because you found someone, right? That is,
yes.
and that is the best way to align the people and to make sure that there is a kind of a common view that we need to do this. And then start obviously the discussion about people, and then we work together and others, and then you watch and you meet the team. Second condition, and that's a factor more than really a condition. That is when you speak with laterals, so whether they plan to come alone or with a team. I don't know. You probably have that better experience than I, Steve, but clearly, someone who says, "I'm a partner in my law firm, and if I come by myself." It's important to ask the question why, right? It's important. Yes. What's the reason why the team or associate part of that, or what kind of need? Because again, I think transitioning, being capable to replicate or to navigate into the new environment is very much relies very much on the capability of that partner to work on with a team, right, of associate.
Yes.
Like 1, 2, if I may say, right? So sometimes coming by himself, I've seen that very many times. No surprise if there is sometimes just there is a reason why, right? And then that's part of the due diligence as well. And it comes sometimes law firms are not really good at due diligence. And the third, that maybe the most important one ultimately, is the integration phase, and that's both ways. And that is sometimes what law firms don't get, right? They make the effort, spend months and months and money to hire someone, and when it's done, then of this just leave that person alone and good luck, and please deliver what you promised to deliver.
Yes.
And that is a big mistake. And I know every HR function in law firms trying to convince the partners and the management and say that you should build up a 100 days plan. You should spend some budget for these people traveling the world and meeting people and looking at his as well personal skills and how we can leverage these in order to introduce. And so that's very much about working on acceptance, about collaboration, about plan and client introduction, because the lateral hiring is not about just bringing in business you have. It's very much about helping the firm to continue to grow as well on the client that do exist, right?
Yes.
And it's a new era for the lateral as well. And it's not about just buying someone the skills and a market share. That's wrong, right? It's about helping the new mix to deliver even better. So that's for me the success condition. There are many others, many factors. Every story is unique, but
yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, we'll come on to integration part in a minute because that's obviously the part sort of closest to my heart at the moment. I think it's very interesting you talk about how if a partner approaches you on their own and says they're not with anyone else, it sounds like that slightly rings alarm bells in your head as to whether, how much of a team player they are. And you obviously define one of your definitions of success was being able to build a team. I hadn't thought of it like that before, actually. But you're right. So can you, in your head, think about laterals? And I'm not asking you to name them. I mean, they have come on their own, and there's a kind of you can see. Okay, there's more of a correlation between laterals that don't work out as well as you hoped, and those people who come on their own.
That's absolutely right. So that's me. But again, I'm sure there are many examples that would contradict what I just said. But I think this is very much my
experience. Yeah. And on the integration side, it's interesting, isn't it? Because as one M&A partner, when I just started doing the integration coaching, said to me that he found it fascinating how when companies merge, and he said that every lateral was a mini M&A deal, basically. And he said when companies merge or acquire another company, they don't regard the end of the deal when they sign as the end. They regard that as the beginning. And he said he couldn't understand how law firms with laterals do what you've talked about often, which is says, let's shake hands and have a glass of champagne, and there's your desk, and hopefully you'll deliver everything you talked about. And certainly what I'm trying to do is to persuade firms that the integration piece is the end part of recruitment. It's not a separate part. It's the end part of it. And firms spend so much money on recruiting laterals. And I don't just mean recruitment fees. I'm talking about internal partner time and everything. And it is interesting. It does sort of fascinate me how firms won't spend not big amounts of money. It's not big compared to the amounts they spent when they recruited them on trying to make sure they're correct, and then seem to blame the lateral most of the time when it doesn't work out. Is that your experience?
Oh yeah. That's also probably comes from a common mistake made by the lateral and the law firms to believe that hiring someone and bringing its clients and its practice into the new firm is all what we expect. And the truth is, and that's very much an experience, and there as well as mine. I think that when you join another law firm, you join a different world, right?
Yes.
Other people, other clients, different culture, different values, different opportunities, strengths and weaknesses are different. So you are going to be a different partner, and your practice is going to be different as well. And the law firms need to accept that this is an opportunity, and how do we leverage the best of this lateral hire in terms of skill set, personality, market positioning, client connections, to make something different within than just what it was in his previous firm. And that is, for me, obvious. When Simon hired me, and I've been convinced, this is not an obvious choice. I was a happy partner in Burnbird. I was in management. I was driving the IT sector, successful young guy at the time. That's 15 years ago, right? But then he said, join us, because we're going to have the fun, right? We are embarked into kind of a new model, and we want to do something. And my career has not just been to transfer. Of course, I did transfer the team, the practice, but the truth is that I became someone else. I became a different partner. Right. And by the way, my management journey gave me a different kind of opportunity that I would have never had before. So everybody has to understand that being successful is also accepting that this is not about buying a practice. This is about building something new and with adding value to both the firms and the partner by joining together. So that's the mistake we often do by believe this is just enough, right? Please replicate. This is not it.
Well, yes, it's really interesting because one of the previous guests, a guy called John Bulsden, who I don't imagine you know, he's an infrastructure partner at Latham's, now retired. But he talks about on the podcast how actually the clients that he brought within a few years, he wasn't acting for any of them. He came from Herbert Smith. Herbert Smith, as is its wont, often makes a big fuss about people leaving and tries to protect the clients and everything, which is entitled to do. But John was saying, you know, I was going to a firm which was completely different. And in hindsight, it was irrelevant what clients he brought because he ended up acting for completely different clients, better clients for him. And so it is interesting how firms put that emphasis on the book of business without actually just trying to work out, can this person build a business? Not necessarily can they bring a business, can they build a business? And I always used to, in the old days, when the Americans were relatively new, because they'd all come in, the Americans in particular, saying they wanted collegiate partners who, you know, really could be part of the team, but they'd like them to bring, you know, a huge book of business. And I used to say, well, if they're really collegiate and they're really, you know, loyal to their firm, they probably won't be able to bring any clients because they'll have institutionalized their clients. So surely you want partners who probably don't have any clients, but you know you can build the business again. Of course, they kind of looked at me in a strange way. But it's kind of true, isn't it, actually?
It is.
And I remember having conversations with various people at your firm saying, actually, people who are honest and say, look, I don't know what's going to come with, but I know I can build a business. Here's what I've built, so I can do it again. Yeah. And of course, that doesn't tick the boxes on the forms that need to be filled in.
That is the challenge, right? Sorry to interrupt, but that is very much, that's the whole process is very much about due diligence and please commit on numbers. And can I go through your numbers and say what kind of clients and how many euros or sterling you've made with these clients for the last 3 years? The truth is that, okay, what you bring is that connection, that relationship. Maybe these live matter, but the truth is what's next with this new environment in terms of opportunity for these clients. Very hard, but I think this is law firms. I just try to reassure themselves by making this work, right? I think that's, and justify before the board, before the exec, the number of points, the REM you're going to offer starting days, right? So that is, but that's a misleading approach ultimately in terms of how you succeed in lateral hiring.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Well, we'll move on because I could talk all day about that. But so just coming back to you personally, tell us about sort of some of the best moments you've had as a partner, maybe some of the less good moments you've had, and why you see this in those ways.
Honestly, I feel privileged as a lawyer for being a partner in the law firms I went through. I never found difficult, hard, or regretting any kind of phase. I think, of course, when you become a partner, you need to accept, and I remember that's very early days as a partner, that you're no longer part of the community of the associate, right? And that you can't go for the Friday drinks there with the same kind of approach, that everything you say, every behavior you have over the years, and that getting obvious the older you become, is that you have a kind of a weight in what you say, a weight in what the way you behave. So these kind of lack of full, I would say, simplicity, full humility approach, equality in the way you behave with your peers is very difficult, and something that you make friends, but that's very much as well ultimately become, as a partner, the kind of role you have that has influencing. So sometimes you have disappointments. You may have disappointments, that's someone you believe were close to do, and then you realize, but that's maybe explaining through your political navigation and political way. So you need to accept that. You can't always. So I don't think I can say that's something I really didn't like being a partner. Again, ultimately, it's a privilege, and being successful and being trusted and supported and powered, and ultimately being in trust with the clients, and still having a good practice and enjoying your daily work. You can just say, well, lucky you are.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's good. So if you had your time again, coming up to where you are now, is there anything you'd do differently in your career?
I didn't anticipate that question, Steve. I don't know. I think I love the practice in which I am. I love the clients. I think I build the team. I think I would, maybe, of course, with my mistake, of course I did mistakes. I think in terms of some time on judgment on people, or some time on decisions, but that doesn't mean I would do things differently. I think I think I yeah I've been trusted by a big numbers of people,
Yes.
and that is, again, winning trust, and give trust, has been part of the what I really liked in the job. And even if that sometimes there is an end to that, sometimes there is some sort of betrayal, ultimately you don't have to regret. This is so I would not do things differently. I'm not that kind of person who got some regrets anyway. So the important thing is no regrets is very important things, but never feel that you've made something wrong, right? And I don't think I did. So hopefully, right. And I don't have to be arrogant by saying this, right? I think that would be very French, right? As you say. But I think I don't think I did. Again, I'm sure I did I did mistakes, but I don't think that was driven by wrong feelings, right? So I think that,
Yeah. And so in your career, have I think you mentioned right at the beginning about senior partners, or maybe at Bird and Bird. And I'm interested in what mentors you've had in your career, and key pieces of advice you've received from them.
That's absolutely, well, at least for me, and I'm sure that's the case for many people, right? Jose, I think in every business, every career, and I keep telling my kids, I'll now become adults. I think for the oldest one, I think it's just meet people. I try and watch them and your boss, right? Because create the trust. Because I think this is the way you progress, the way you yourself. So yes, I've been lucky. I think first my professor-in-law, no doubt, gave me a lot of opportunity, and he's still a friend. Obviously retired, but became consultant to the firm for many years, and has been very close. That is, he's been a mentor in many ways, at least in terms of supporting my career, and sometimes going to him to share views. Of course, the partner I started my career with, and then she was a female partner and very well-known telecoms lawyer in France. I worked with her 7 years as an associate, 10 years as a partner, and she learned me a lot around client relationship, and she gave me this freedom, I feel, and this capability to see no fear about any kind of opportunity. And she's been a mentor more as a model for me than really someone who was giving me some advice. I think obviously at Bird and Bird, I think there's some people, I remember Hamish Sanderson.
Yes.
You may know him.
Yes.
He's one of the very senior partner who took me and said, "Well, I want to work with you," and gave me a lot of advice. And of course, Simon Levine has been a mentor in many ways. He's been my boss, and he hired me. He made my life very hard many times, but he's been a mentor in many ways. Gave me a lot of learned me to be patient, to listen to the others, to very much accept, as I was mentioning earlier, the fact that you can't do, even if you're right, you can't do things by your own. You need to bring people together And he was a really, really fantastic leader, and I really, really watched him every day on that basis. And of course, it's not about becoming kind of an admirator, right? Because that's wrong. But getting the fact that you know why you're here, and because you respect the person who leads. And that helped significantly. So I would definitely mention Simon in this long list. Absolutely. Still friends. Very, 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 very good friend.
I'm interested to know how you made your life really difficult, but maybe you don't want to tell me. I don't know.
I have many examples, and I will give you that offline one day.
Okay, that's fine. So, I mean, looking ahead, Stéphane, in terms of going forward, what factors, sort of market or otherwise, do you think are going to affect either individual partner or firm success in the future? And obviously, we're living in the world of AI. Whether that has an effect. What are your thoughts on that? And also, agile working, which obviously is much larger than it was when you started as a lawyer. What are the things going to affect success going forward?
I think this is all about the future of the legal industry, and obviously, but it's trying to remain very practical. I think it's before any other factor. I think there is a question mark about the value you bring to clients, and how this is changing in a way. I think what clients' expectations are, and that's absolutely crucial for law firms to reflect not about who they are and what they do, but very much about what client expects. And when you speak to clients and build legal departments who are becoming better and better, in particular on innovation, stronger and stronger, more legitimate than ever in law, in companies, because they are driving the major risks and the governance of the company more and more. You realize that obviously you can't just be a lawyer, and that is where the challenge is. Multidisciplinary is probably the direction. Building consulting services alongside the legal work, for me, is one of the most obvious. That's not big title in the news, but that is the reality of what actually legal departments expecting from law firms at the moment. That is going to impact the way partners are going to succeed, because you need to accept that there is a big numbers of skill sets that you don't learn that at law school, right? About project management, about different kind of obviously practices, and that you need to be capable to work with others. And project management is one example, but consulting services in some industries is becoming more obvious if you want to sell your legal or regulatory environments. And that is also because the regulatory environment becomes more and more complex. And actually, and just taking my practice as a technology lawyer, I started my career as a technology lawyer based very much on contract law and IP law, right? And if you want to be a technology lawyer today, I think that's not even really the priority. The priority is to try to navigate into all of these new regulations, because the IT industry becomes a regulated industry. Then that means that people who are not lawyers by background can get that job, right? Can get that kind of knowledge. And actually, the consulting services are actually more and more hiring lawyers to help them navigate relations. So that one direction, and one fear, one challenge, and one opportunity, as always. AI. Well, listen, I'm old enough to know that I'm very much involved in technology to know that the waves of technology came on, and actually, even Richard Susskind was predicting the end of lawyers 25 years ago, right? And we're still there. The truth is AI is a big shift compared to the others, because we start and we tend to delegate our intelligence to tool. And that is the limit you need to put forward. But if you adopt AI, and if you accept to recognize that this is a tool rather than actually a capability to think deeply and bring value to your clients, then actually you can embrace it and become better. This is the challenge. It's obvious that the young generation needs to become AI native in the way they go and practice their law. but they need, and that is a limitation. Sometimes this is helped by regulation. We tend to believe in always criticizing regulation, but it's good that the AI Act, for instance, decides that actually legal services by AI are high priority tools and to be regulated, because you cannot delegate. You cannot make the tool responsible. That is the limit you need to put forward, and hopefully this is a more social and ethical question than just for the lawyers. But if you put that limit and embrace, I think this is a great opportunity to be more efficient and to actually dedicate your time and effort to where your client expects you to be supportive and helpful. So agile working, last questions. I don't think agile working is really a challenge, is an issue for the future. This is a big question. A lot of people talking about it. The truth is that I think this is more about responsibility and trust in your people. And if I just taking the team here is here, right? I never asked for that. It's really about the kind of, and for those who want not to be here, as long as we can talk, as long as we can see each other, I don't see the point. So I know this is a big organization, facilities issues in law firms, and challenge about cost reduction or opportunity, by the way. But I don't think this is a challenge for the future of the industry.
Okay. It's interesting, just going back to your point about consulting, providing more consulting services. I find that very interesting. I'm hoping to have someone very senior from a consultancy firm who's involved on the legal side in a consultancy firm. I agree with you that is something I think law firms, that's going to be taken as read, that you need to provide those kind of consulting services, not just legal advice. That's what you're saying, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And vice versa. I think that is true as well. I think this is, and we know the big four trying to take the audit outside more and more to keep the consulting, to bring back the lawyers together, because this is a great opportunity for them. And the client access is as well very different. The way you engage with clients and the access to clients is very much beyond any kind of interaction of law firms can have. I see the opportunity. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. That's all been very interesting, Stephan. So when moving to the end, I always ask a couple of final questions to end with. And so the first one is, what are your 3 non-negotiable behaviors for you and your team to ensure success?
Quality, rigority, and just being really demanding with yourself in a way that is obviously helping the community. Transparency, integrity, never try to hide. You have a challenge, you have an issue, you have a personal challenge. I think it's important that as long as you can share what you want to share, but we need to know, because this is a question of trust as well for all of us, including an ambition, right? So transparency, integrity, being honest, collaborative, that sounds obvious to me. You need to work with the others, right?
Yes, no, I understand. So, and it may be one of those, but what's your one golden rule to be a successful law firm partner?
Having fun.
Having fun. Okay, great.
That comes just to my mind. I think, enjoy what you do, being proud of yourself at some point, right? It's the pressure is huge. You have hundreds and hundreds of reasons every day not to have fun. But I think overall, take some distance with what you do and who you are, and try to remain very humble and just say, okay, I feel privileged and I enjoy what I do. And just telling yourself this every day. That's
okay. Great. That's a good way to end, I think. Thanks, Stephan, for being our guest, and the first guest actually who's not based in London. So that's great, actually, from my point of view. And it's been absolutely fascinating. So thank you for being on Beyond Billables, lessons from top law firm partners. It's been great. So we're very grateful that you made the time to be with us. Excellent. And so everyone, please join us on our next episode of Beyond Billables, lessons from top law firm partners. Hopefully have another top partner share their success. Thank you, and see you next time.